Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Saturday, June 13th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Being Saturday, we're doing a DM perspective review of an animated show. We've been working on Conan the Adventurer from 1992. This is Season 1, Episode 3 we'll be looking at today. Let's get her started with the opening. You got to do it without sound. Part of the deal with checking out this IP is that you have to, of course, alter it in some way, and the most easy way, of course, is to run it without sound. As fun as it is to watch the show and do reviews of it, there are requirements, and we follow them. This is why each week this will get flagged on YouTube. And after a couple of days, when they realize that it's actually a review, they allow it to go through and be put up on YouTube. In the meantime, it sits in limbo for a couple of days while I dispute the review. Always a good time. It is a Hasbro property. I think they have bots out there that they see Conan the Adventurer mentioned, and of course automatically flag it. Star of Shadowzar. This is the third episode by Christy Marks, who actually wrote 6 of the episodes, including the first 3 of the series. She remains a creative consultant throughout the first season and writes 3 additional besides the first 3. I think the 9th episode of the series of season 1, and then a couple more in season 2. It starts off with them talking to Zula's shaman and using some divining magic to figure out what to do next, because of course Conan's still on that mission to try to figure out how to take his family and get them released from the living stone spell that Rathamon, the serpent wizard from another dimension, has cast and turned his grandfather, father, and mother into stone. They, through this divining magic, discover that there is a city named Shadowzar, a wicked city, they'd say, which only exists where people only exist to enjoy the pleasures of life. So they go and check it out. And of course, in a series that's going to go on Saturday morning television and have kids watching, wickedness is the pleasures include this circus where Conan actually gets to meet Jesmond, a performer there. Now, here's something interesting. The Star of Shadowzar is the name of the episode. She is the star of this circus. She also uses throwing stars, which interestingly glow, they note, and return to her. She keeps them on a bracer on her arm, and she's acrobatic as well as being formidable with her weapons, and very good horsemanship. No saddle. There she goes, climbing up to the tightrope. These Zamoran individuals, guards, mercenaries that are chasing her, are dangerous, but she's tricky herself. Zula, good with a crossbow still. And Conan's got to muscle the rope. Now, the worry, of course, from my perspective, was what happens to her, but she's cutting the tightrope, swinging down and escaping. And so, Conan and Zula pursue her. The Zamorans now have captured all of these other circus folk. They'd been sent to capture Jesmyn, but, and there's a Zamoran, I don't know, noble, merchant, something, who has sent these guards, and we'll find out later who's behind that. Now, Conan, of course, talks to Needle, the youngster phoenix that is trapped in his shield, that was sent along with him to give him some guidance. Here, of course, that fat cat Zamoran who'd sent the guards to capture her. She, of course, goes there because he did, in essence, capture all of her friends from the circus, so she wants to get them freed. So she's going there to coerce him. The stars, made from star metal, just as Conan's sword and a number of other weapons that his father crafted from the fallen meteorite shards, glow around this fellow, which tells us something, which we'll find out later. He now puts her on a mission to go get the Stone of Transmutation, which we should have mentioned earlier was part of the divining that Conan and Zula's shaman did back at the beginning of the episode. Somehow this sapphire in this tower of a wizard, they were told, is called the Stone of Transmutation, and Conan believes if he can get a hold of that, it can help change his family, break the living stone spell on his family, and release them. Well, now, she's going to make her way inside the walls, the grounds outside the tower. And Needle will report back to Conan. In the meantime, he sent Zulu off to try to free her circus friends. So they split the party. Maybe unwise. Needle tells him that she's inside, and so he goes in. Now, there are a number of pretty good monster creature fights in here. The first of which is coming up now with this sort of crazy, almost Remoraz-like beast. Now, it doesn't have frost or anything like that, but it's a multi-armed, dragon-esque type creature. Wingless, though. Still love how they go to commercials and come back from them using bits from the animation from the show. I think that's a good job on their part. Christy Marks, I say again, this is her third episode. She opened the series. She's a very good animated show writer, and she remains creative consultant throughout the entire first season. She would go on to become famous for the animated show Gem, and later worked on the Gem and the Hologram movies, I think was 2015. So she has been, and she has dozens of credits for animated series writing and creative consulting. Jesmyn, says, nope, I'm going after the star. You're not part of this. He says, we got to work together, though. He knows stuff she doesn't at this point about their weaponry. She's looking for a door, and he says, there's the door up there. How do we get there? I can't fly. Well, how about you carrying a rope and a grappling hook? Can't throw it that high, but I've got somebody who can fly. So Needle becomes useful again, even though it's a heavy grappling hook. And he will fly it on up and attach it somewhere so they can climb up and get into the tower. Zulu, meanwhile, is off trying to free her friends. So it's just the two of them. But as we know from the opening sequence, the opening title sequence credits for the show, he is eventually going to have 4 companions. So, first episode was about him. Second episode was about how he came to know Zulu, the two of them escaping from slavery together. And this third episode seems to be about the quote-unquote origin story of how he meets Jessamine. She is independent. She gets inside. She locks him out. And she is in a treasure room. Now, this is rather conspicuous. Tough to get to, right? You got to get over the wall, under the grounds, climb up into the... But even though she finds a large gem, not necessarily the one she's looking for, and she's attacked immediately by a giant spider who webs her and attempts to web Conan. This thing is huge. Spitting webs out of its mouth. Interesting. Not a spinneret out of its hind end, so I don't know if that's something to consider as a continuity error or a research error. I guess maybe there are spiders that do it that way. I'll have to look that up myself. Well, now, can't get your sword out of the webs. We'll just pick up a conveniently large, heavy chest and smash that. Now remember, it's a stone of transmutation they've been trying to get. So even as that creature in the garden was destroyed, it turned into a large, heavy rope. So too, when he destroys this huge spider, it is turned into a pile of branches and mud. Could be. Article Jiskar, welcome, Todd. He's saying in the chat that maybe the spider had resistant to edged weapons. I guess that's a possibility. Now here's something. Meanwhile, now they got to go see if they can find out where in this tower is that stone of transmutation. But meanwhile, Zulu's been sent off to go help free her people who have been captured. The other people from the circus who she considers family. He uses rune magic, as we've seen in the last episode and in this one, and he is able to, in a Tarzanian way, talk to, control, or befriend animals. So he's beginning to get some allies. They think here that they've found the sorcerer in his research chamber, but no. It appears to be a giant ape creature. Very strong. Bigger than Conan. Tosses him against a wall. She's throwing her stars. Oh, it's smart. It knows how to use a table as a shield. Throws it, knocks him down, and now it's got the sword, and that seems dangerous. Seems to know how to use it, too, the way it's handling it. They'll go to commercial, and we'll just say that it is an interesting take to use a ape man creature in a sorcerer's tower. As we all know, there are a number of stories where Conan has to get into a tower, and one of them includes him fighting a sorcerer who takes on the form of an ape. Now, it could be they take the fact that we have that knowledge. Pretty good animation on the fighting here, by the way. There's a number of movements and grapples and whatnot that are pretty well designed. I like the fact that he's going to use a found object here. Use this chandelier to thwart the giant ape creature. ape man, whatever, and now the chain to wrangle him in. Notice, though, that the circle of the chandelier that was holding his arms down, make note of that. We're going to see something a little different later. Now, she's concerned with him this time. You got your ribs hurt, she mentioned, and you're moaning. He says, it's not me moaning. And through another doorway, they find this fellow who claims to be the wizard, claims that his ape beast pet escaped, and he actually thanks them. Now he offers them a reward. I have treasures, I have gems, I have all sorts of jewels and gems. Now they say, of course, they want the stone of transmutation. And just to emphasize the point, Conan pulls out his sword. A bit of a threat there. So there's mixed messages of whether or not we're friends, right? Takes him into her room. All sorts of beams crisscrossing. Says this is where my ape guard usually keeps the stone of transmutation safe. He can jump from these various beams. It's like an ape house set up for him. Well, she doesn't want to jump down that far. She says that's too far for her, so he goes down alone. He says, well, drop down, I'll catch you. Okay. Moment. Nope, not a moment. She says, put me down. Fair enough. Xenopus had a pet ape in Holmes' sample dungeon. True. I'm sure that she did a lot of research. Christy Marks seems to know her stuff, and she's a creative consultant throughout the first season. I mentioned earlier that she wrote the first three episodes, another one later in season one, and a couple in season two. Bizarre, the stone of transmutation they find at the bottom turns out to be a fake, and he pulls it out of his robes and turns the furniture at the bottom, the plinth, the pillar, the stand for the fake stone, into lava, and the floor of the room begins to fill. So now we know why it was difficult for her to get down. They wanted to make sure we know it would not be easy to get back out. Interestingly, they keep backing up toward a door that's here. And I gotta say, I don't recall this door, when I've seen the episode before, actually coming into play at all. They're still not messing with the door. She will get lofted up to the first beam available. He's still back against the door. Now, I suppose, in a continuity way, that door is meant to let us know that he can get down there without having to jump around or climb. Conan suggests she uses her stars to take out the wizard. She tries, can't get a clear shot. Says so. After trying, so they send our buddy Needle the Phoenix up. He wrests it away, but it falls, although he manages to fly down and catch it before it goes in the lava. But he casts another spell, which is some sort of lightning lasso. An interesting idea. It doesn't seem to be harming him, but it is definitely a force. Uh-oh. It's falling again. That's okay. You got to get out of the lava. She figures out a way, and the gem falls past them and into the lava. That's trouble. So now the stone of transmutation is destroyed. It seems to turn him into a guy who looks suspiciously like Hanover Fist from the Heavy Metal movie, if you recall. But now everything is turning to mud. So everything about this whole location has been transmuted, and once that stone is destroyed, it's all reverting back to its original state. So they get the heck out. Needle flew out at one point, we saw that. They call for Thunder, his steed, and ride off to find Zula and her friends. A bit disappointed. The stone was destroyed. Well, it would have ended the series, right? Because he could have transmuted his family. We find out that the Zamoran was actually working for Rathaman. And we also find out, and now she finds out, that the star metal that makes up her stars, her shurikens, transform these lizard people back into the snake people, back into their natural form. He pulls a statue down, very cool little effect here, opening up crossbows, repeating crossbow traps it seems, because they fire more than the original 6 bolts. She's able to use her shuriken, which we see 4 on her wrist now. I thought they showed 3 earlier. And it returns to her after sending the snake people back to their original dimension, which all star metal seems to do. Changes them to their original form and then forces them back into their dimension. Zula is very impressed by the fact that her shurikens fly back to her. And he wishes that his bolas, which is also made out of star metal, could return to him. And she gives him, as a reward for helping release her people, the last of a potion, which if sprinkled on the weapon, will make it return when desired. And off they ride. Quick commercial. Now that's from an upcoming show, because that one's not in. And here we go. Closing music. We'll watch the end of the credits here. Wally Burr. Interesting. Would love there'll be some skeletons fighting later. That's the father, the mother, and the grandfather on the left. There's the dimensions. We're with Rathaman and his legions of snake people, which disguise themselves as humans. 92, we saw the date. Christy Mark, creative consultant, story writer, story consultant. Puts it all together for them. And check out the 4 companions. There she is. There's Zula. So we've got 2 more to meet, which will probably be in upcoming episodes. Nice. Well, Ink Dweller, welcome. Throwing star magic item, it sure is. But note that it's 2 different effects, right? Within the show, we know that the throwing stars were made from the star metal, the meteors that fell on Samaria that Conan's father had forged into his sword, into numerous other weapons which they were selling for a while, which tipped Rathaman off that the star metal was out there. And don't forget from episode 1, Rathaman needs that star metal to top off 7 pyramids with a circular effect that then creates a portal which will bring their snake god Set back from this other dimension, to which it was banished after a bunch of good wizards decided we don't want Set anywhere near us. So all these snake people with Rathaman at their head are infiltrating various areas of society to control things, to gain power, with the long-term goal of collecting up as much of this star metal as they can so that they can create these portals. So overall, this series under Christy Marks has a pretty good overarching plot. Yeah, high concept cartoon, very true. And the fact that it's episodic and we're starting to put this adventuring party together, it really does a good job of becoming a sort of a start to finish D&D-esque cartoon series. Remember, season 1, 13 episodes. Season 2, 52 episodes. So there are 65 episodes of this series over the course of 1992 and 1993 that were produced in Canada. These are Canadian voice actors that do this. I mentioned Christy Marks working on the show. She's actually from Danville, Illinois, a little bit east of Champaign, Urbana area, about a third of the way between Champaign and Indianapolis. The voice of Jasmine provided by Janse Jod, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Janyse, British Columbian, Canadian. The voice of Conan, Michael Beatty, who is out of Toronto. Perhaps most interestingly is, Michael Beatty does Needle. Michael Donovan does the voice of Conan. I thought I might have had that screwed up for a second there. Michael Donovan out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And all of these voiceover artists have tons and tons of credits to their names. So they put together a really good team. Probably most versatile is Scott McNeil. Now, he's an Australian-born Canadian. He's a transplant, originally born in Brisbane. But he's been a Canadian voiceover actor going way back to, taking a quick look now, I want to say sometime in the 80s, and, well, did some voices in the 70s too. Handful of credits in the 70s, but on through a lot of Captain N and the Game Master, Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, New Adventures of He-Man, G.I. Joe. Scotty's done a lot of things. In this particular episode, he does the voice of Rathamon, but he's also the voice of Zula. He furthermore did the voice of the Shadazar captain, but also that Shadazar wizard, who we saw transform after his stone of transmutation was destroyed. And if you've watched this episode, or if you will, you'll note that the voice of the Shadazar wizard actually sounds a lot like James Mason. If you're familiar with the actor from back in the day, like one of the more recent things he did is already 30, 40 years old, which was the television adaptation of Salem's Lot, a Stephen King book, which you'll see him in that as one of the kind of evil avatar minion of the devil on Earth. I think we're good for this episode. I want to thank everybody for popping in, checking it out. Catch it later on YouTube. It'll get up. It'll get flagged. It'll be down for a couple days, and hopefully they'll let it pass like the last two were, because it is a review, and it is substantially changed just by removing the audio from it. and we do discuss many of the different features. I also want to say, for anybody who is watching on YouTube, to please subscribe. Hey, don't forget, June 29th, Monday, is Harryhausen Day. Make sure if you're on Facebook to sign up for the event. I'll be watching Harryhausen movies all weekend. He is the king of stop motion animation, and this would be his centennial, would be the anniversary of his birth at 100 years. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 92, but would have been 100. Fantastic guy. Don't forget our schedule. Tomorrow we'll be doing a rules retrospective. We'll be continuing with David M. Prada's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Initiative and Combat Rules. It's a 2006 look at version 2.2 is what we're using. I think it was his last one at those complex rules. And we're into the examples now, so we're kind of in the home stretch. On Monday, the weekly news and giveaway announcement. Tuesday, cartography and world building, campaign discussion, mostly around Grimwald, my own setting. On Wednesday, crafting miniatures, terrain, painting, all of that's on Thursday. We'll be back to building virtual tabletop adventures on Friday. And then next week, we'll check out the 4th episode from this wonderful Conan series. And I say once again, thanks to everybody who checks out the show. If you're in the Twitch channel, make sure that you follow and chime in during a live episode, because that automatically puts you into the weekly giveaway. And if you're on YouTube, please do subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you see. And we will catch everybody next time from the OK Grognard Show. Take care.